Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Dior, and this is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. It's been a while. Obviously, it's always a few weeks between uh, point matches and things like that because of qualifiers and then any sort of downtime. But I also missed the last week of point matches last season, so it felt even longer. I've also been just very, very busy juggling work and lots of new games that have been rather entertaining to play and other projects I've been working on. And then, of course, my sleep schedule's been absolutely ruined, so I'm pretty exhausted. I had it in mind to go ahead and just throw these matches, these 5 qualifying matches, and just get them over with. But I wanted to at least see how the band picks went and then kind of played it by ear from there. The box is pretty much the same. There are some changes, but I'll go into those as we go along. As for our opponent, 3 healers, I believe. Yeah, 3 healers, 3 tanks, and then a mixture of assassins and AoE. So it's a mixed box for the most part, though it does have a number of characters I dislike greatly. I of course went ahead and got rid of Wedham because he's usually a problem. I'm gotten used to fighting Wedham because of the usual the other PvP mode that's awful. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head because I'm tired. But since there's no band pick for that one, I usually have to deal with Wedham in one form or a fashion. If he's going single target, he's not the worst, but if he happens to have the AoE and I don't have Rose and Seal, it can be definitely a problem because it's an AoE heal negate. Anyway, my opponent, of course, went ahead and banned my Iron Chancellor. We opened with Lucretia of all people, so I was like, okay. At this point, I got rid of Rose and Seal and Bernhardt. Bernhardt, of course, gives up that annoying extra mobility with his faction buff. And then Rose and Seal, of course, is another faction buffer and also just generally annoying as far as negating debuffs and her various passive healing. So got rid of her. This also would force my opponent to take a healer because there's only 2 healers left, which will give me a little bit of flexibility for the next pick. I went ahead and grabbed my Rose and Seal. As always, my box only has 1 tank in it, and only 2 healers, so I have to grab a healer in the beginning if I want one. They went ahead and took out my Akaya and my Kayura. And as expected, they went ahead and grabbed a healer. They went with Liana. So at this point, I was like, all right, well, I can try to get rid of action buffers, but there's a number of characters I just like dealing with. Werner being one of them. So got rid of Werner. Sherry's, of course, very dangerous if you let her get started, essentially. And her high mobility can be pretty suppressive. So I got rid of both of them. Went ahead and grabbed my Lucretia. I was actually pretty torn on what to pick. I had kind of a lot of options, but Lucretia was pretty safe. Even if my opponent went with something like Christiane, I can still put pressure with this type of character, and also she gets faction buffed by Rose and Seal. I think part of the reason why I was confused on what to take, besides just it's been a while, but usually I grab Iron Chancellor, but they've already banned her. In any case, they went ahead and banned my Sylvaria, which good for them, I guess. They got rid of my Sherry, not surprised there. They went ahead and grabbed Christiane at this point, so I was like, okay, so they have a faction buffer. Went ahead and got rid of their AoE at this point, the more dangerous AoEs. I mean, yeah, Bozel's a problem, but I'm more than used to dealing with him. And if they bring Bozel, he'll have to bring his own faction buff. Went ahead and grabbed Zerida. It's been a while since I've used Zerida, it feels like. This was mainly just to get some additional buff flexibility if I needed it. They started going after the rest of my long legs and assassins. At this point, I have pretty good flexibility. I still have my tank. I have a spare healer that can make a tank if necessary. Though at this point, the dangers are magic damage, so summoning Jim would probably not help that much. So they went ahead and grabbed a second tank. Grabbing Hilda there. And so at this point I was like, alright, well I don't really want to deal with Juggler. And I did not want to deal with Elwyn's long legs. And if they bring in Florentia, this would mean they only have 1 killer. And that's not a big deal for me. They would have a lot of act-agains, but only one actual attacker. And Bozel I can kill with an assassin because I have Zerida. So At this point, since they left me with a tank, I went ahead and took a tank. That way I can soak hits from Langrisser. At this point, they got rid of my Sissy White and my remaining assassin, leaving me with choice of Helena or Alicia. Alicia, I do not have a faction buff for her, so if I bring her, I have to bring some other form of attack buff, which would probably be from Mass Attack from Langrisser. So I take Alicia because obviously Helena is not going to do very well here. Okay, so Phalanx troops, faction buff, dominating formation. Yeah, she has the exclusive armor, so she's able to equip all this. So no big deal there. 15, 25. I'm just checking something. Okay, yeah, so she is 6 stars. Bozel here, of course, is 6 stars. No surprise there. Sorceress is, of all things, so I guess slightly offensive. 3C brought his own faction buff, brought Seal, no surprises. Christian brought Royal Protectors. I'm guessing... Okay, yeah, so Royal Protectors actually take reduced magic damage, so that actually makes sense. Angels, of course, also reduce magic damage, but they are vulnerable to archers, which we have. Alright, and then Liana fighting monks, which is actually pretty good, because that means I don't have to worry about Shrine Maidens. O to Creation, Heal, Act Again, so 3C with Act Again, Focus. Langrisser, standards, actually not standard, brought Black Hole, and then Free Strike and 3C with Sorceresses, and that's it. RN, I dropped my, I usually take Reaper, but I dropped Reaper for Mass Attacks, that way I can buff Alicia. Nothing too special there. Zerda, standard kit with faction buff, so she can faction buff herself. Hilda, I dropped her faction buff for Route, simply because I didn't really need a faction buff. Her faction buff would only affect Langrisser and herself, and I brought Rosen Seal's faction buff, which buffs all 3 of them. And then, of course, Rosen Seal, I went with AoE heals as usual. Oh, and I went with Crystal Molders, because they're just generally better for tanking magic. It's also just my default, because it also has self-healing. Anyway, Alicia here, Firebrand Snipers, Righteous March, 3C, and Gunfire Barrage. Okay, so with all of that, just gotta play it by ear. Being player 2 is always annoying, because you kind of have to play at the pace of your opponent. So, key things, of course, is counting steps and counting range. Biggest danger, of course, is Liana, because Liana can act again any of these people. The Bozel does not have boots. So yeah, with this it could possibly be, what, 1, 2, 3, and then extended range to there, possibly. So yeah, there's a lot of things you have to take into account. Also, you have to take into account next round as well. So yeah, with that, she could possibly go pet to here, swap, and then 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So yeah, it's just the swapping and act against can make it the range very elusive. Dark Waltz, no surprise. At this point, I went ahead and swapped my class to Cavalry. That way I can survive a free strike, or hopefully survive a free strike. Alright. So I was counting steps based off Bozel's stop position, but then he got Tenyo breezed, so now I'm kind of screwed either way. Right now it can hit everybody. It can't hit these 3 right now, but because his thing is 5 range, so it's all the way up to there. But yeah, that kind of messed things up a little bit, but it's not surprising. I practically assume my opponent's going to get a Tenyo breeze at this point, because that's just how my luck is. Alright, faction buff. Oh yeah, I didn't even look at... I didn't actually look at Christian's skills. Yeah, just Flower Formation with Floral Realm, so it's a standard kit. Went ahead and moved in at this point. I was trying to... my turn order was to try to maximize my buffs, because Alicia will only have 2 turns of attack bonus because of Mass Attack. So I moved her first, and then I would move Lucretia. Also, Lucretia's mass attack will make us immune to attack down and silence, which is super helpful. But at this point, my group is a little bit vulnerable because I opted to not put up a faction buff because Bozel's coming, and so I did this instead. So healed everybody up. This way we can get some passive healing as well as negate the barrage of debuffs that are coming our way. So I went first here. So free strike. So yeah, this will be outside guard range, but she can self-res, and none of them have really a way of doing a second hit after the first. So I can easily just move Hilda into position from there. Yeah. So free strike. Yeah, 36,000. So one difference to the box is I have Law of Creation on Lucretia now. So if she ever attacks something and has class advantage, either through her actual class or from things like Free Strike or Impure Shockwave, she gets an additional 10%. I think it's like 10% magic damage from, hero magic damage. So she does even more damage now. Yeah, with 30. Wasn't it like 31,000? How'd she die then? I probably just misread it. Anyway. Bad part about having AoEs for heals is their cooldown, so I'm just reducing the cooldown. Daybreak, of all things. Didn't get Thorns. Free strike here. 740 health. So essentially, if I hadn't swapped our class, she would have taken a death there. Also, I think I missed it. Daybreak. Nope, okay. I was checking something because I did make a mistake, or something I didn't consider during this fight, so I was just checking it. Anyway, getting 3C set up. And then my opponent's gonna AoE. I only have like 700 health, so I'm gonna take a death here. Alright, so some of the debuffs that got thrown on us were either silence or attack down. So we managed to avoid some of that. Only got magic defense down on Alicia. Golem got, of course, super debuff, but I don't care about him. So yeah, we did take a death. I could have healed, but I didn't want to heal first. I wanted to wait. Now the good news is, since Bozel was super aggressive here, he's completely exposed. So I can easily just go there. So I did run through him, so I did get a buff from that with Alicia's passive. Alright, yeah, plenty of damage. Okay, nothing hit with the AoE. So act again. So at this point I need to make sure to guard Alicia, so I went ahead and moved up. And instead, actually went after my Rosenziel, who unfortunately was not at 100% life. Now, something that was kind of strange is I could have swore when I checked the danger zone when I was playing this that she was outside it, but for whatever reason, that's not what happened. So I ended up losing my healer. But doing this also made it so my opponent was out of position, but since I have no actions left, it didn't really matter. But it still works out because she's outside of her res range, and I went ahead and just, even without crit, I get to attack the general directly, so that takes her out. So at this point my opponent has no actual strikers, though I also don't have any healers. Alright, so I do make it kind of a mistake here. everything's been so kind of intense these first few rounds that I actually have not put up a faction buff. Yeah, I actually never got a faction buff up, so that's probably why they went after my healer. So, yeah. I think I still had an attack buff for this round, but I wasn't at 100% life. Didn't kill myself, but I also super debuffed her, so that's good. Then I'm going to go ahead and swap and try to get stuff going on here. Okay. And the crystal healing's helping a little bit, but since Rosen Seal's dead, it does minimum because it has no intelligence to base off of. Okay, I'm just seeing what the cooldown for intelligence report is. Okay, so that even though I didn't need to move through because it's, her talent's on cooldown, I went ahead and did this anyway. Fire barrage. And then the fixed damage finished it off, and that was it. So yeah, it's nice to start the season with some characters that don't see too much play, so got to play around with Alicia and Zerida for that round. My opponent was very aggressive and definitely took advantage of the openings I left, but it also made it so I could easily counter and kill them. And I had more killers than them. He only had two casters, one of which only did AoE and the other one was a mix. And then of course I had 3 on my side that can actually potentially kill, including 1 assassin. So one way or the other, I was going to probably be able to whittle them down even with their multiple tanks. Alright, let's do one more for the road. Again, this is a placement match. This one was a bit more terrifying of a box, but a lot of faces I don't usually see. We got Oboro, Cortez. The rest, we haven't been seeing Himiko as often anymore, but it made me dread everything when I saw her, unfortunately. They have technically 1 tank and technically 1 healer. Alright, so with that in mind, I went ahead and got rid of Wedham as usual. They opened with getting rid of my Kaya, who I've yet to actually use in a battle. They open with Iron Chancellor. At this point I was like, I'm not going to deal with your assassins, so we'll get rid of those 2. Grabbed Rosen Seal. Got rid of my tank, so they're definitely making it clear what sort of fight they want here. Went ahead and grabbed their Kaiyura. And of course they had, at this point I got rid of their Lucretia because I didn't want to deal with any self-rizzing nonsense. And of course Himiko is really, really bad against me because, or I'm really, really bad against Himiko rather, because I'm single target and she always negates at least 1. And her AoE is just brutal since it's physical damage. Grabbed Iron Chancellor at this point. They got rid of my Alicia this time, and got rid of my Sherry. Grabbed Cortez. Cortez I have not seen in a while. He definitely came up during the Chinese matches when he first came out, and he was pretty brutal. But I'm guessing his factions just didn't really mix well with people's boxes, and there's obviously a lot of good characters now, so finding a space for him is probably difficult compared to just bringing Bozel instead. At this point I went ahead and got rid of Elwyn and Tensei Jessica. Grabbed my Lucretia. They banned more of my assassins. At this point they brought a tank. Usually if I grab Lucretia, it goads them to pick a tank. Got rid of Autocrado and I honestly don't remember her name, but it's like, was it Amelia? I don't remember. Anyway, I grabbed Savaria, so we'll see how that plays out. Besides the extra mobility that Iron Chancellor provides, the only person that has really high base mobility is Kaiyura, and then of course we got Oboro and Sissy White there. I don't really know too much about Oboro. I've recently saw some matches that involved him, but that's about all I know. They got rid of, and at this point they left me with Sissy White and Pierotes, so I grabbed Pierotes. because I don't really need to see white. Okay, so we got Kyura. This one's a holy version of Kyura. I don't know, I think that affects her attack speed, but I'm not sure. Iron Blood Commander, well, let's see. Standard kit for Kyura with Faceless. Iron Blood Commander here, we got, yeah, 3C with her extra mobility and then mass attack, so pretty standard there. Hilda here has faction buff and the usual with Crystal Molders. Burrow, I don't really know much about. His troops are pretty irrelevant because he transforms into a dragon. But his gimmick is when he initiates battle, his damage dealt is increased. And if he has no soldiers, then the enemy soldiers do less damage. He also gains, before entering battle, and this hero gains a shield after taking action which can block damage equal to 25% of the hero's max HP. When the hero dies, he does AoE damage, and then permanently increases their damage taken. His passive, for every 1 stack of Dragon Valor, this unit deals increased damage when their talent triggers upon death. And then when attacking and entering battle, if he has no soldiers, he does more damage. Then just a regular attack that does debuffs. And then I believe this is his 3C. He becomes unable to attack, move, or displace or use skills, except for Dragon Morph. After taking action, restore HP, and then gain Dragon Valor, which gives him more mobility and all sorts of good stuff that's stackable. Each successive stack of Dragon Valor will trigger the following effects, where he gets a bunch of bonuses. And then when he does Dragon Morph, he'll teleport to a spot, sacrifice all of his soldiers, gain his usual stuff, and then he'll transform and act again. So essentially, the idea is to have him charge up as much as possible, and then send him in dragon mode to kill everything. He could definitely, I've seen him be pretty brutal in dragon form. Cortez, Crystal Warlocks with Mimic, Elegy of Soul, and Soul Scream. So he has a single target attack, which can summon, if it gets killed, it'll create a puppet. His 3C, of course, does AoE and does a bunch of debuffs. And then Mimic is, he can kind of switch his classes or something, or he'll copy classes or something along those lines and then move again. Usually you just use the move again. And then his talent allows him to essentially apply a bunch of stuff on a he can essentially debuff a target where they do less damage to Cortez. And I think he gets a bonus when fighting somebody with the same hero type or something on those lines. And then he can also hit somebody with that same debuff to expend it to do an AoE hit that does some minor damage. And if he kills an enemy while they have that fragmented soul, it's, makes a puppet. And if he dies, he becomes a puppet, which essentially just has some... It's essentially a summon unit. Yeah, sorry, I don't really know Cortez's details too well. In any case, as for our kit, I brought Silvaria's buff and 3C and then Sneak. We got Lucretia here, so this time I went with Dark Reaper. Standard kit for Iron Blood Commander, I went with Sandseat Mercenaries. Rosensteel, same kit. And then Pyrotes, I went with the usual kit with Forest Night Elves. Alright, so obviously my opponent's going to open with this, Mass Attack into formation. Alright, so 10U Breeze buff proc there, so Cortez has this much mobility. Thankfully it's not too bad, but he can move additional 3 steps, so he can actually get all the way to here pretty easily. And then of course we got Kyura, which if she has the range extending staff, she can shoot all the way up to here pretty easily. Alright, so for this I went and passed Pyrotes' turn, because any buff I put on her is only going to last 2 rounds because of mass attack. Albura is charging up. At this point, went and got mass attack up in formation. Alright, she switches to Cav. Get faction buff up. So yeah, the big thing of course is just figuring out so yeah, that talent I was talking about earlier, it's right here. Reduces damage taken by dealt to Cortez by 20%. And then his thing is, yeah. And then when he's like, when he's fighting against holy units, he gets increased intelligence. So it's based off the class that he marks. So in this case, it was holy. All right. Besides that, yeah. So the key thing here was just seeing where everyone's moving, because I want to get Silvaria set up in a way to hopefully either have multiple targets or have a way of just providing additional suppression. So at this point I move Lakeshi up here. This puts her in range. Even with the staff, they have the exact same range, which is 4. So I get hit, and then I counter. So we both die. So real quick. Okay, so she didn't have any way of doing fixed damage, so my sorceresses were at full health, which helped me tank some of that magic damage. Key thing was I managed to survive the hit, or I managed to kill her in the process, so it saves me in action. So I got set up down here. The transformation, of course, extends my skill range by 7, so I can go all the way to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to here. So anyone that comes with any closer will essentially be a target for my snipe. So Cortez moves up. I completely forgot about Mimic, by the way. So I was like, oh great, I'm just gonna get killed. So a few things about Silvaria's talent. Anyone within 5 blocks that ends their turn, any enemy that ends their turn 5 blocks from Silvaria that are at 100% life end up taking fixed damage. So that's what happened there. It's not really a big deal since Crystal Warlocks don't get much for being at full life, at least as far as I know. Besides that, it's pretty standard. So he has attack buff. He gets bonuses against... Oh, he did do Soul Depiction, so he's getting plus 40% int fighting archers. So yeah, that's pretty messy. Yep, and Flawless Wisdom puts her out of range. So I was actually really surprised that that did not kill. Like, he still had Soul Depiction because it can't be dispelled. I was in snow. Silvari did have full HP, and she did have... I'm fairly certain she has Last Rites. So with that, she probably was... That damage reduction is probably what saved her. So with him now taken care of, I don't really need to worry about him for the moment. The key things is, where is Ironblood Commander going to be moving? Obviously, Oboro is going to be continuing to charge up. And then, of course, Hilda's kind of just out there. So another Soul Depiction. And then, of course, triggers the talent again. So I went and healed up at this point, just in case. So triggered Reflect, which actually scared me a little. Now, something I did not realize is the puppet that spawns actually gets a turn. So I thought it didn't have a turn, so I was kind of ignoring it. But yeah, upon death, the puppet will do two debuffs within 3 blocks. His attacks will have First Strike and Ignore Guard. And after taking action, she reduces a random stat of an enemy within 2 blocks by 20% for 1 turn. So it's kind of just an annoying pest. I was tempted to try using the Arcane Golem, against the Painting Puppet. But the Painting Puppet actually had better magic defense. And I think he even had better intelligence. So I don't think I was going to be able to win this raid. I didn't want to lose my additional range. And this is when I realized, oh, you got an action. Don't know why he went after that of all things, but whatever. It's like, alright, well, we need to get rid of you, so kill you immediately. So, Painting Puppet. So I did get hit with 2 debuffs. One of it got soaked by the Crystal Barrier, and then the other one got immune, which I'm assuming was either silence or attack down. So I went ahead and moved up at this point, because if my opponent wants... it's actually still outside of attack range for Ironblood Commander. So Bora is charging up. So at this point I moved down. I'm actually just in range with Ironblood Commander, so if a Bora doesn't act now, he'll... or doesn't act next round, I'll be able to be in range. Now, I believe I mentioned, was it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So she is technically 1 step away from my range. That's assuming I have actual 9 range. So I have Hidden Stab. This is the Lurker Sting blow. Attacking any from 9+ range makes it so I attack with only Silvaria, and I only attack the general. So the way Lurker Sting work is it doesn't provide any attack buff, which kind of sucks, but it provides plus crit and plus HP. And if you don't move 3 or more spaces, I think it's either more than 3 spaces. Yeah, I think it's if you move less than 3 spaces, your skills get plus 1 unit range. So that makes Silvaria's snipe go from 9 range to 10, and Silvaria's bonus when she's at 9 range also applies for 10 range as well. So she ends up doing, you know, tax only heroes and then plus 20% damage dealt. So one thing I am curious about was how close that was. So 11,649. I think I did way more than that. And of course I day-breaked. So I negated my crit. So I negated my crit, but I still do, yeah, over 20,000. That's ridiculous. Yeah, and Hilda's been in range. She's actually 9 spaces away, but I don't think I could have killed her. Not with 9. Yeah, not with 913 defense. So at this point, Boro has to transform because he's the remaining attacker. Teleports in, loses his troops, gets all those buffs. And I think what happened there was I think he was out of range. I think he couldn't actually get in range to attack. So at that point, he was just sitting there. Boro, the dragon's actually really, really dangerous from what I've seen, but I'm not going to know that now since I didn't get to fight it. But yeah, honestly, a good start. My original plan was to just, you know, throw these 5 placement matches, but I kind of just wanted this. At the very least, I wanted to do the band pick to see where things were going to be at. I guess one thing that, you know, to take into account, even if you're a bit nervous about Apex, is Apex matches are fast. Like, a lot of them are pretty fast. You'll very quickly realize that there's no hope for a fight and give up, or your opponent will do the same in most cases. They'll usually not draw it out for any reason. And even if they do draw it out, if you have the advantage, it just quickly breaks down from there. But yeah, got to try out both the promo characters from Valkyria Chronicles, and yeah, got to try those out. There are of course a few new characters still around that I haven't got a chance to mess with. They're not 6 stars, and I don't really intend on using them until they are 6 stars. And if I was going to use anyone, it'll probably be was it Kaguya? I think is her name. They have too many names that are very similar at this point, and it's going to get worse too. I mean, we do have a Zuza here, but that's not who I was looking for. Ah, yeah, Kaguya. There she is. Kaguya might be a decent fit because she does have extended range. Her gimmick with the cards and stuff is a bit awkward to use though. But yeah, just to kind of show off the, we got the bow here. Yeah, Lurker Sting plus 10% crit, plus 5% health, and moving fewer than 3 blocks gives you plus 1 range. And then on Light of Genesis and on Lucretia, I have Law of Creation now, which does plus 8% int, and when attacking and entering battle, if you're using a super effective skill, it will do, your hero will do 10% increased magic damage. This is essentially designed for Tensei Jessica since her Light's Embrace works on everything but Holy. But since I also tend to fight a lot of Holy and a lot of tanks anyway, I went ahead and got it on Lucretia since I can use Free Striking and Pure Shockwave. In the future, in the far, far future, there's going to be a faction buffer that will specifically faction buff Holy. So Law of Creation will become even better with Lucretia at that point. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. I'm going to do a few more matches probably later after I take a nap or something. I obviously need to do 3 matches to at least unlock my rewards for the week. But until then, I am the Depressed Hero. This is Langrisser Mobile Apex Season 11. I'll see you guys later.